We are following breaking news. The New York Attorney General has filed a lawsuit against Donald J. Trump Foundation and its board of directors, alleging, quote, extensive and persistent violations of state and federal law. The president is responding on Twitter.
President not happy at all. He writes, the sleazy New York Democrats and their now disgraced and run out of town AG, Eric Schneiderman, are doing everything they can to sue me on a foundation that took in $18.8 million and gave out to charity more money than it took in, $19.2. I won't settle this case.
One of a number of tweets in a matter of minutes,
he is
really.
Fired up. He wrote this also. Schneiderman, who ran the Clinton campaign, never had the guts to bring this ridiculous case, which lingered in their office for almost 2 years. Now he resigned his office in disgrace, and his disciples bought it when we would not settle. So let's dig into this with CBS News legal analyst Rikki Klieman. She is joining us on the telephone. So, Rikki, what do you make of the Attorney General's lawsuit and the president's response?
Well, I'm amused at the president's response because this has been a lawsuit long in the making. Regardless of Eric Schneiderman, the disgraced Attorney General's personal circumstances, that does not affect the integrity of the New York State Attorney General's office. And we know that the office has been looking into the Trump Foundation for a considerable period of time. So what happened here was the person who took over, who is the interim Attorney General, decided to continue the investigation not only into the president's foundation, but also all the other potential lawsuits that were in the pipeline. So what this lawsuit is basically saying is that you cannot use a charitable foundation as your own personal piggy bank or your own personal slush fund. That regardless of the president's response, that if you find that you are taking in charitable donations, that you use those donations to take care of your business expenses, your legal bills, let alone a presidential campaign, that is not the purpose of a charitable foundation. You can't decide to grab from column A and then put it into column B. So the suit is asking, in part, $2.8 million in restitution. Not only that, but to dissolve the foundation and then to bar the president from heading up any charitable foundation for the next 10 years. That's a very powerful lawsuit.
And also, as part of the complaint, they mention that the foundation is prohibited from participating or intervening in any political campaign on behalf of a candidate. What's the connection with the 2016 campaign season?
Well, what we find is that there was a campaign event, and that at that campaign event, it was requested that people contribute to the foundation. And as a result of that, I'm sure that's what propelled that part of the complaint.
Rikki, let's just step back a little bit and take a bird's eye view of this. For a lot of people and President Trump's supporters, they're going to see this lawsuit that the New York AG is bringing against the Trump Foundation as just another in a long list of attacks on this president, his policies, his family. But as you know, being a New York lawyer, President Trump has been involved in dozens of lawsuits over the years as a businessman. And this investigation didn't linger on the desk of the New York AG, as he's suggesting in his tweet. Mm-hmm. The investigation perhaps took 2 years. And so this isn't, this has nothing to do with Russia. This has nothing to do with whether or not the Russians tampered with our elections. It has nothing to do with collusion. It has to do specifically with the Trump Foundation and this sort of cronyism.
Yeah, absolutely 100% correct. This was an investigation that had proceeded according to the ways that any investigation would. And Barbara Underwood, who is the interim Attorney General, I don't know her personally, but she has an excellent reputation for integrity. So she's not tagged with the same, or rather, let me do the metaphor correctly. She is not painted with the same brush that Eric Schneiderman was painted with. Eric Schneiderman was clearly a personal adversary of President Trump. We don't know anything about Barbara Underwood to that same extent. I mean, she is someone who is a career prosecutor and is doing what she believes is correct. So the other part of your statement, Vlad, is that what you wind up with is President Trump being involved in a myriad of lawsuits during his business career. And he likes blood sport. He likes litigation. So if he does and he enjoys sparring with an adversary, well, then best of luck to him.
The other thing that we learned from the complaint is that the Attorney General has sent referral letters to the Internal Revenue Service as well as to the Federal Election Commission. We talked a little bit about the Federal Election Commission. Would those two entities be particularly interested in this?
They may or may not be. I think that the Attorney General did the right thing because there are incidents that are outlined in the complaint that would be under the purview of these other bodies. The Internal Revenue Service certainly may be the more interested party. I don't know so much about the Federal Election Commission, but we'll probably know more by the end of the day.
So let's just take our viewers through some of the things that are in this lawsuit from the New York AG. One of them is that now famous painting, that $10,000 painting of President Trump, which is now hanging where? Mar-a-Lago?
I think it's Mar-a-Lago. It's at one of the golf resorts.
So it says that this is one of several examples of the foundation being used in at least 5 self-dealing transactions. Another one of these self-dealing transactions is in 2012, a man named Martin B. Greenberg sued Trump National Golf Club after he made a hole-in-one at a fundraising golf tournament that had promised to pay $1 million to golfers who aced the 13th hole. He did. As part of the settlement, the charitable foundation paid $158,000 to a foundation run by Mr. Greenberg. We have no idea what that foundation is.
Yeah, Rikki, I think it's sort of interesting, so you can explain this to us. So the $10,000 portrait is something on its own, but the other examples that we have here are situations where the president or one of his companies was called upon to pay a settlement, and the settlement was paid to another charitable foundation, from his charitable foundation to another charitable,
which they call questionable.
It seems like a bit of a loophole. Can you explain why that's questionable? After all, his foundation is supposed to be giving money to charity, so if they pay money to another charity, why is that questionable?
Well, if you pay money to another charity for a non-charitable purpose, that's just a funnel. It's one thing. For example, I can give you an easy example. There's a charity or a foundation, like the Ford Foundation or the Carnegie Foundation, and one of the things that they do is they give grants to other charities, but for the charitable purpose. For example, in New York, we could take anything as simple as, say, the Police Athletic League, or a hospital charity, but a charity that has a charitable purpose, any nonprofit that is helping the underserved or underprivileged. So places that give grants to those organizations do so after you've applied for a grant that has to show why your charitable purpose is worthy of getting the grant. You can't pay off a bet for a hole-in-one, and you can't buy a painting, even if you decide that you're going to do it by funneling money to another charitable foundation. It's humorous on its face. I mean, can you imagine going forward to the Ford Foundation or the Carnegie Foundation and filing a grant application because you wanted to pay off someone for a hole-in-one on a golf course? It's preposterous.
It does sound indeed preposterous. Rikki Klieman, always great to have you to help break this down. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.